This week, I want to talk about whether you should show your work in progress to another person. Now, it is common for writers, it's really the condition of being a writer that you will struggle with motivation, you will struggle to find a reason to keep writing, especially because writing is completely solitary. That's why most people fail at it. It's just something that it's romanticized by people who don't do it, but when you start doing it, it becomes apparent that it really is just you on your own writing until it's done. And that can be a lot to deal with. So, should you show your writing to another person before it's finished? There are a lot of questions to answer. Who are you showing it to? What genre is it? How far through are you? That sort of thing. Recently, I decided, for one reason or another, that I was finally going to let somebody else read what I've been writing. I am currently on the latest draft of my novel that I've been writing for about 6 years now. And I'm fairly sure this is going to be the last draft that I'll have to write from page one. I think that after this is finished, I'll only have to edit what I already have, rewrite certain scenes, that kind of thing. I won't have to start all over again like I have with all the other drafts so far. Which means the story is finally starting to take shape. I feel like I finally figured out the world building and what actually happens and who my protagonist really is and his voice and his life. I feel like I've started to answer those questions. There was another person who was reading what I was writing much earlier in the process, though. We're talking like draft one. There was a draft before that I called draft zero because I got about 6 months into it and then gave up because I realised it wasn't working and then started over. Somebody has actually read draft zero, but I don't need to go into that. Draft one, I had somebody who was, every time I finished a chapter, I would send it to them. No, that's not what I was doing. It was on the first day of every month, I would send them what I had written since last time. And the reason I did this is because I thought, well, then I have a reason to actually write it. I have a reason to keep going. If they are there expecting to be receiving what I've written that month, that's a reason for me to actually get on with it a bit. And that is what happened when you have a sort of benefactor. When you have someone there expecting to be able to read it and is giving you feedback at the same time, that can help. The problem is, though, the person I was sending it to, eventually I realised they didn't really get the book. They just didn't really understand it. They didn't really know what I was going for. To them, they just wanted to read what I was writing just because it was me who was writing it. And because they wanted to show an interest and because they like reading. But they are also a bit of a gimmicky reader. They'll read something just because they think, oh, that's wonderful, you've written this, that kind of thing. Especially because it sort of got to the stage where I realised, you're not paying attention, are you? You're not actually thinking about this as you're reading it. You're reading it because you think it would be nice to read it, but you're not actually paying attention. And I realised that because when I finished one draft and I started writing the next one, and I kept sending them the latest installment, the feedback I was getting told me, are they actually aware that this is a new draft? Like, do they think this is a continuation of what I had already been sending? Because the feedback I was getting was it was repetitive, that it was just the same thing over and over again. And I thought, that's because it's a new draft. That's because I'm rewriting the story now. I'm and eventually I thought, okay, you are clearly not that intelligent of a person, so I'm not gonna keep sending these to you. And that's when I decided to go it alone. Now, I do have a writer friend who is sort of the reason that I decided to take myself seriously as a writer. I had always liked the idea of being a writer. Then he finally released a book. And from that point, I decided, okay, it's possible. You can do it. So I then decided to finally start taking it seriously and to really commit to it and to start doing it. And one of the things I used to imagine is that when I finish the book, I'd be able to send it to them and not even tell them. I'd just save it as a PDF, email it to them, wait for them to see it in their inbox, and then get back to me about it. That was the romantic idea I had. And so it was the thought of them eventually being able to read it that kept me going, even if they weren't actually reading it. Because I thought, ooh, if I wait until it's finished, and then they can read it when it's finished, and they haven't had to see all the work that's gone in behind the scenes, they haven't had to see what goes on behind the wizard's curtain, they haven't actually seen the process, it's going to be so much more impressive for them to have no idea what it's about at all, for them to just know, oh, it's finished and I can read it now, and for them to just be presented with that as their first impression of the actual finished story. I thought, oh yeah, that'd be so good. However, ever since I started doing these videos, and it's sort of become like a diary where I can record both my progress and also work through my own issues as a writer, I thought, you know what? It's worth experimenting and it's worth trying something out because I might at least be able to get a video out of it. So that's what I decided to do. And so for one reason or another, I let somebody read some of my writing. Not all of it. It was the latest chapter of my current draft, and it wasn't even a finished chapter. It was still incomplete. It still hadn't actually finished when they read it. But I sent it to them, and I got a lot of very good thoughts from that person, because they are somebody who reads all the time and reads widely as well. They don't stick to one genre. Now, there is always the question of, if you're sharing it with someone in your family, is that necessarily a good choice? Are they going to want to protect your feelings? It's not a question that can be answered easily. I'm not going to give just a simple answer to that kind of question. But I think what matters is, if you do want to find the motivation to keep writing, letting somebody read what you're writing can be a benefit, and it can give you that motivation, depending on who it is and are they actually engaged with it. Are they interested? Are they interested in reading it because you've written it, or are they actually interested in what it is that you've written regardless? That's the big question. Are they a person who reads? Do they read widely? Do they talk about what they've been reading? Are they a literary person? Do you often have conversations about literature and writing? And also, here's a big thing. Have you already been talking to them about your writing? If you've been talking to them about how, oh, I'm overthinking everything, like I do in these videos, I'm talking about how, oh, it's so hard, like trying to figure out like how much should I describe or not describe, like with me and my main character's home, where there are lots of rooms and there's I've got the layout in my mind, and I know all about the furniture and the floor plan and everything. Like, oh, I'm overthinking it, blah blah blah. If you're already talking to them about your writing and they're engaging with you about that, that might be a sign that they're actually someone worth sharing your writing with. But you should know that once you have crossed that threshold, you can't go back. You can't make them unread the writing you shared with them. Once they know what it's about, you can't change that. Because writing, the people who succeed at writing are people who are just so personally attached to it that it's basically a part of them, and they consider their writing to be an extension of them. They are their writing. They write because that's just who they are, which means your writing is, because and I have found this, lots of writers find this, it feels like sharing a part of yourself with a person that has come from inside you, that you don't really share with people. Writers are introverted people. The ones who succeed at writing and can see it through to the end, we're quite happy to just sit on our own all day and just write and be in our own little world. Which means the stuff we're writing is the kind of thing we wouldn't usually express. In fact, we write it because we find that is the best way to express it. We have a lot of feelings, we have a lot of things to say, we've got a lot of stuff, thoughts about the world and about other people and what's going on and stuff, and we find it difficult to express our emotions in person. We find it much easier to express our philosophy on the page. And that means that you will find your writing is basically an extension of you as a person. It's the closest there is to actually being able to look into your mind and your soul. It is such a huge part of my identity that it is not something I want to share with just anybody. That's the challenging thing. Do I take that leap? Do I let that person in here? This is my little world. It exists as a place for me to escape to, where, for the time being, the outside world doesn't exist anymore. That can be the comfort of writing, that for the time that you're writing, it's all there is, and everything else just goes away. It can be like therapy. It can be just an enormous way of helping yourself deal with things by giving yourself a space that is your own creation that nobody else can come into because it exists inside your mind. You escape inside yourself. It's a bit like controlled insanity in a way. Letting somebody else in is something you only do when you really trust that person. And if you're not a writer, but you're a reader, and a writer you know has shared their writing with you before it's done, it means they trust you pretty much more than anybody else on earth. For a writer to offer you that they won't tell you, and you may not know, but in their head, the actual choice to share their writing with you before it's done is the highest compliment. It means that they fully trust you, and that spiritually they are willing to actually connect with you on that level and to let you in. Anyway, what the hell was I saying? As always, I start out talking about just a normal topic about writing, and then I just end up getting all deep and spiritual. I'm surprised I haven't had a mental breakdown this week, actually. Anyway. I don't know if I've managed to form a conclusion from this. I don't know if you've learned anything useful from this. But I find that my videos are like that. So anyway. I still don't know how to end these things. My endings are always very Very awkward.